This is the Art of Network Engineering podcast. In this podcast, we'll explore tools, technologies, and talented people. We aim to bring you information that will expand your skill sets and toolbox and share the stories of fellow network engineers.
You are listening to A1 255.0 FM, where we pump out all the classics to get you through those long maintenance windows. This is Big Stubby, and I'll be captaining this ship of the tech tunes that you love to hear this evening. This is the request hour, and we've got some good ones coming up. Prepare yourselves for On the AS Path to My Origin by the BGP Boys, Blinded by the Fiber Light from SC to LC, Get Your DTP Away From Me by the No Negotiators, the death metal hit Collision City by the Raging Hubs, and of course, Broadcast Storm by No STP. So hey, even if nothing goes as planned tonight, at least you'll be rocking with us. But before we jam, here is a very brief hour-long message from the Art of Network Engineering. Welcome all back to another episode of the Art of Network Engineering. I am Tim Bertino, and we've got a nice tight-knit group for you in this episode. We have Permit IP Andy Lapteff. How you doing, buddy?
What's good, Big Stubby?
I hope that doesn't
was great,
stick,
man. Might be the name of the goat, Big Stubby. I'm great, Tim. Thrilled as usual to be here. Life is good. I'm working on some Python at work, and I'm thrilled.
I don't want to talk about that right now, and I shouldn't say that with the guest that we have. We'll introduce him in a minute. But anyway, I want to talk about, you've been doing, you got a lot of good family stuff going on lately. I've been seeing some good pics. You've been enjoying the family, having a good time, taking a break to balance things out. Looks exciting.
Yeah, I've been reprioritizing, I guess, what's important. You know what I mean? Now we're getting real, Tim, right? This is just the intro.
Hey.
I have a tendency to get hyper-focused and lose perspective and overwork. And, it doesn't seem to matter how good I get at my job or how high up whatever ladder there is to climb. I just work as if, my life depends on it. So, yeah, that caused, some just imbalance, right, in life, the work-life balance everybody talks about. So, and I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like in tech, this career can consume you if you're not careful. Every 5 minutes there's a new technology stack you have to learn, and if you're busy at work, you got to learn it at night, right? Sorry, family. So yeah, man. Thanks for bringing it up. It's been really nice. My wife and kids have noticed a difference. I feel much calmer, and it's been nice. So now the goal is to sustain it and not fall back to my old ways, right? But yeah, man, it's good. You seem pretty. You don't do that, do you? You seem pretty balanced with work and family.
I'm a fan of beer, so there's that.
That's your secret sauce.
Yeah. No, seriously. I think it was our buddy, friend of the show, Robin C. I wanted to get into, I wasn't outside of technical material. I haven't been reading books for years, and I wanted to get into that kind of thing. So I'm like, okay, I know me, I'm not going to put the time into actually reading. So I'll cheat and I'll try this audiobook thing. So Robin turned me on to this service where it's an app and you link it to a library card and you can download books from local libraries. So I've been doing that. And I went through this one that I think it was called Unwinding Anxiety. I think you had seen
Judd
it too.
Brewer.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan.
And it really opened my mind to just being aware and paying attention to surroundings and how you're doing things day to day, and really just becoming curious about how you react to things, how you handle things, how you handle stress and anxiety. And it's a process, but I can feel a little bit different than I did before I got through the book. So yeah, it's so easy to echo what you said. It's so easy to find that next bright shiny thing and just get so laser focused on it that you feel like you got to be all or nothing and just put your head down and go into it. And you really got to step back and realize that you've got, I know all of us on here have an excellent support system, and we need to make sure that we reciprocate that. And we can't do that if we just got our head down all the time working. So yeah, it's been obviously an eye-opening year couple years now for, I think, all of us. So balance, I think, is key in sustaining that. So yeah, really good points there, Andy.
And now it's time for some wins. Winning in our Discord channel this week is Psycho Met. They got a job offer with a 25% pay raise. Congratulations. Freeman EdTech accepted a new job offer as a wireless network engineer. Hoobastank Pilgrim passed the AWS Solutions Architect exam. Congrats. Weiss House, I hope I said that correctly, was selected to join the Women in IT Networking at SC. Congratulations. What an honor. Bearded Packet was promoted to a senior network engineer. Congratulations. And Jeff Kish passed the Enterprise Wireless Design exam. Congrats. That's from Cisco. Network Charles was recently selected to be a Tech Field Day delegate. Congratulations, Charles. Maleficent 1 completed the Meraki CMNA training. If you're not familiar with the CMNA training, it's like the CCNA but focused on Cisco Meraki. And it's usually for Cisco employees and partners, so it's not typically publicly available. But it is a fun training. I've done it myself, and usually you walk away from that with a full stack of gear. So congratulations. Steve McNutt passed the CompTIA Cybersecurity Analyst certification. Congratulations, Steve. And Tim McSee took and passed the ACE Professional exam. Congrats. Robin Canella was invited to join the National Society of Leadership and Success through WGU. Congratulations, Robin. And SMAR 377 passed the Encore exam. That's a big one. Huge congratulations, and you're one gigantic step closer to your CCNP. New Patreons joining us this week are Kev Twad, Charlie Dean, and Chase Duke. Thank you so much for your support of what we do here at the Art of Network Engineering. If you're interested in joining our Patreon program, you can go to patreon.com/artofneteng. Check out our different membership levels and join one that suits you best. And we appreciate all of our fans for letting us know just how much they're enjoying the show and all the great feedback that we get. Keep it coming. Now back to the show.
All right. On this episode, we have the long-awaited return of a big fan of him. We have the one and only John Capobianco. John, thank you so much for coming back. How are you?
Hey, Johnny.
I am fantastic.
Round of applause.
I'm really happy to be back. I had such a great time on the first episode, let's call it, and I've met so many more people and connected to so many people in your Discord, and really feel like I've joined a ready-made community that celebrates wins. We just heard some wins, pick up each other from losses, help each other out with new technologies. It really is like a non-toxic, pillar of the community now. So, but I'm doing fantastic. I'm excited to be back. I felt like I had a little more to talk about last time, and I've gone through some career changes since I've been on last time. So yeah, I'm here again, and I'm really excited to be back.
I really like how you frame that, John. It some of us, may be intoxicating, but not toxic. Definitely not toxic. So yeah, I agree with that. Thank you. Let's kick it right off with what you just mentioned there. You mentioned a career change. Let's unpack that a little bit.
Sure. So I, after a pretty long process, interview process and selection process, I've joined Cisco formally and officially on their Cisco training boot camps, or more affectionately known as automation boot camps, ABCs, which is a relatively new offering from Cisco. And they have, 12-seat classroom or per seat individual seats for this training. And it's a deeper dive into automation. So I'm really excited to be part of Cisco. It really is something that I've been working towards, it feels like, for about 10 years now, or even longer. A real lifelong dream to work for a technology company, not just any technology company, Cisco in particular. And I'm very happy to be a developer advocate, is really what I've joined as, is to be a developer advocate and advocate for automation and programmability. And this, we know that the industry's changing or has already changed but I really want to be part of this, next wave or evolution of our industry. And it's just a really good opportunity for me for a variety of reasons. I've reached a point where I was ready to put down my pager and ready to have a little less production grade stress, let's say, in my life. But I also think I've kind of transitioned, and I've reached a point where I want to give back or to teach the next generation or to share the knowledge that I've accumulated over the time I've been in the field. I loved being a professor at college. And this opportunity, someone in the one of the Patreons mentioned it. It seems like a perfect fit for me. And I'm glad to hear that vote of confidence that people think I will be a good instructor. But it really is like, it's everything I've ever wanted. And even just a month in at Cisco, I feel like I've made the right decision and that this was a really good move for me for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, that's excellent, John. I think I'd let you teach me just about anything. So, and I hope that you bring back in these new classes, you bring back your teaching style by memes like you did back when you taught in college. I think that'd go over really well. But I did want to ask, and I don't know how much you can talk about it just yet, but so this is a new like learning path. These are live classes. Is this something that's completely outside of like the Cisco Digital Learning Library?
It is. So it's actually a 2-phase classroom learning experience where you have a week of a little more normal training and learning from Cisco training. And then you follow up after a little bit of time for a 4-day deeper dive. And that's where I come in. I'm leading the deeper dive where we have a schedule of, we talk about, say, the models and the objects, and we talk about Git, and we talk about Postman, we talk about Python and PyATS, and we talk about Ansible. All of the wonderful things that I've really enjoyed learning and becoming pretty good with over the past 3 years in a Cisco-backed, official, very well structured. A lot of thought goes into these modules, and it's kind of a la carte. I think the goal is to have an a la carte menu where organizations or individuals can kind of say, I'm a little more interested in Ansible than I am Python. We're an Ansible shop. Can we do tailor the training more towards Ansible than say Python? Or we're really interested in APIs. Can we focus more on the REST API and SDKs and things of that nature? So it's supposed to help accelerate people's adoption of these automation solutions across the Cisco portfolios. So there's boot camps for ACI and Meraki and NSO. There's going to be one for enterprise networks, iOS XE focused. So it's kind of, like I said, it's a dream come true for me because I feel like I've been talking about this stuff as a non-Cisco for free for a few years now, right? So now it's great that I actually get to, I don't have to do disclaimers anymore and say, this is just my own personal opinion. I don't work for Cisco. They don't even know that I'm talking about this stuff. But now I actually am part of that family. So it's been incredible. It really has.
So are these geared toward folks of all skill sets, or is it more toward people that are just beginning into these topics? Who's it geared toward?
So I think it's geared towards both, but the intention is that the first week that you take is enough for beginners and introducing the topics of Ansible and Jinja and ACIs and Postman. And then students will have some time in between that first week and then the follow-up 4 days, 5 days with me and the other developer advocates where we do a deeper dive. So we take what they learned in the first week and then expand upon it and actually go deeper. What's neat is that it's real hands-on labs, and we're not giving you, I don't know if you've ever done the training where you just sort of follow along and you get the little completed lab, and then you're like, I don't know what I just did. It's completed and it worked, but I didn't really connect the dots because I just robotically followed along with these steps in a lab guide. It's a little more, yes, if you're a beginner, we'll offer you the code, more complete Python, let's say, but you have the option to say, you know what, I'd like a little more challenging lab. Don't give me the complete Python file. Let me figure out some of it, or all of it, or most of it. Or I am a beginner and I actually do need you to show me every library I need to import, every command, every variable. So it's hard to do a one-size-fits-all. I understand that. But I think we're targeting just above the middle of the road, right? So a little beyond beginners, a little beyond the average user, but not a full expert by any means. So just a little challenging to get people to think and to create, right? As we move up that pyramid of just raw rote memorization, all the way up to being a creator and creating things with the knowledge we've learned. That's the goal. And I see a question about the class size. It's a 12-seat class, or a group of 12 or 12 individual seats. I believe. I hope I got that right, but I think it's 12 seats.
So I would really love to kind of experience your take on that, John, because I've been part of those sessions like that before, where you've got labs that they want you to do in the session, and you really just feel like you're going through page by page, click here, click there, do this, do that. And you, at the end of it, you don't always really know what it was that you just did, or maybe you know what it was, but you don't know why. And it's just step by step and do this, do that. And sometimes it's not very beneficial. So I think I'd really love to experience, because I know the kind of energy that you bring to those kind of settings, and I know that you want students to leave those sessions feeling like they've done something meaningful. So I can't wait to see your take on these kind of classes.
Well, I don't think we'll leave anyone to flail and say, well, figure it out, right? I just did the lab, right? We're there to help and there to guide. But from what I understand, it can start with the structured outline from the student guide, but then we have the time and the flexibility, because it's such a small group and because it's tailored for the customer's needs and what they required up front. We can kind of explore it a little bit more and go even, it's a deep dive exercise, right? So it's a balancing act though, right? It's pretty challenging to give just enough, right, to lead them down the path, but not just spoon feed answers and get into rote memorization, right? I think the goal is that the customer can leave these boot camps with the ability to create, to implement on, in their own environment. I've looked at some of the modules, and for something like ACI, like we're using Postman to define tenants and VRFs and EPGs and contracts, like real world stuff that you would want to do with an ACI fabric, but beyond just doing it in the APIC GUI, right? That we want to move to get customers to program the software-defined network. That's the whole point, right?
Yeah, and I like how it does seem like these classes are tailored not necessarily for certification study, but more toward, hey, you can use these skills on the job. And the Postman thing is something that a little while back I wouldn't have thought of. I was only really thinking of Postman as kind of a teaching tool, and this is how you explore APIs and that kind of thing, until I was on an ACI project and we had a partner come in and said, hey, check out what I can do. Since we have all of these templates built for how you want to name your objects and how you want everything to look, we can put all of this into Postman, into a collection, and it'll spit out all the config and do all the config for you within ACI. I was like, whoa, this isn't just a teaching tool. You can use it for actual production deployment. So that was really eye-opening.
Yeah, so I completely agree. When I first found Postman, I thought of it more of like a browser-like experience where we consume APIs through gets and it gives us JSON. And I sort of thought that was the extent of it until I really started working more with APIs in particular. Like Postman has pre-API and post-API JavaScript that you can run before and after you do your requests, for example. It has a logging capability where you can check logs and actually look at the full flow between an API. The other thing I really like, and this is actually part of these boot camps, not to give too much away for free, Cisco won't like that, but you can take a working request and there's a little reveal as code button. Now that reveal as code button, that was my leap into Python, because you just say reveal as code and you can pick the language you want. So we talk a lot about Python, but if you're interested in JavaScript or C++ or something, they're in that list of reveal as code. And then Postman will give you back a snippet that you can literally, like with the Python, you can literally highlight it, copy it, save it to a .py file, or go into the Python command line, either way, and paste it in, and it will give you the same JavaScript that Postman did. I think Postman is actually abstracting either curl or Python under JavaScript under the hood and making it nice and easy and a nice GUI system for us, right? The other thing I want to mention about Postman that I really like is this idea of environments. And this can sort of lead you into programmability with some really simple variables. So let's just take ICE, Identity Services Engine from Cisco, which has multiple APIs, really good APIs as of 3.1. But let's say you had a lab or a pre-prod or a test, and then your prod ICE. You could variabilize the URL, right? So instead of typing in lab.mydomain.ice.com, you can variabilize that and set it to your environment, right? So then you're just toggling to say, okay, send this request to prod or send it to pre-prod or test using variables, right? And it's a great way to handle usernames and passwords. Just make them little variables in your environment in Postman. I can't say enough about Postman. And then what's kind of neat is it doesn't have to be ACI or Prime or ICE or RESTconf or whatever. If you're interested just in the general high level of learning APIs, I suggest you find something that you're interested in. Like I'm a big Marvel Comics fan. Look behind me, the paintings might indicate that. There's a Marvel Comics API and you can look up an issue number or like the first appearance of a character or every comic book that your favorite artist was involved in. The API for Marvel will give you all that. And that's just one example. There's space, there's Pokemon, Star Wars, I feel like whatever your interest is, there's likely a REST API out there on the internet for you.
So I got a question, John. Last time we talked, we were talking about the space API, and I tried to make the thing do the thing in Postman after the show, and nothing happened. So this is who you're dealing with. So what does that do for me, right? What do I do with a space API? Like, do I get to see something cool? Do I see the space station's toilet? Like, what happens?
So the NASA APIs, there's a few. I think the easiest one is probably how many astronauts are in space.
Oh, right.
And that it just answers that question. You can go to the API and do a get, and it will return structured JavaScript that says the name and the nationality of the person in space. As a really simple example, as you start to explore, and if you can get a 200 status back, meaning your request was good and it gave you a payload, then there's like you can go to the Mars you're not going right to the Mars rover, right? But the Mars rover has things like the wind speed or the temperature on Mars, depending on where the rover is in Mars. You can get that scientific data from the NASA API. There was one
See,
here.
that's a really
Here's
good
something
use
handy.
case for me.
Someone wrote a Discord bot for their space-related Discord, sort of like we have the Art of Engineering Discord. They have a space one. Well, they have it where you can type in, where is the ISS? Where's the International Space Station? And their bot does a request against the ISS location API. And then the bot tells the users in Discord, the space station is going to be above Texas tonight or whatever, right?
That's so cool. I mean, for a kid who wanted to be an astronaut most of his childhood, to be able to find the wind speed on Mars, through an API. Like I think you've said it before, John, like find something you're interested in or a problem you can solve, or like you need some skin in the game, right? And that is an interest of mine, space, and that would motivate me to keep banging my head into Postman until I get that, that successful get.
I would say it takes away the feeling like, my job wants me to learn Python and I've got to figure out RESTconf and what is this JSON about, a VLAN or whatever. Like it feels like work, or it feels like forced learning. Whereas I feel like if you were to make a bot that could tell people in Discord the wind speed on Mars, you're obviously going to learn a lot through that process. And it's easily transferable in a month or two to RESTconf or ACI or whatever, because you had some fun while you were learning it, and it didn't really feel like you're back in high school in some math class. Like I feel bad when I don't say force Python onto people, but I don't want people to get, I'm back to school learning and I've got to, I don't want to go back to college and learn programming. Maybe there's a fun, maybe there's a more enjoyable experience that you could still learn some tricks as you go, right?
I think that might be the secret sauce for me, John, that you nailed, because every time I try to learn this stuff, it's in the context of what I got to do for work. And it does feel like school. And I didn't like school when I was in it, right? But if I could do something like write a Python script to do something in my personal life, that would be much more interesting to me. It would hold my interest,
Yeah, that's where I like that it's really counter.
Like these,
it's kind of counter. I don't want to say counterintuitive, but counter to the traditional learning. Where I'm going for the certification, or I'm sitting in high school or college and need to pass this exam. I need to get through this entire book, take all these notes, and do all this. Like John, you were saying, rote memorization earlier, and you're really taking another approach where you can say, okay, you tell somebody, download this app, Postman. Go to whatever site you're interested in that has an open API and find the documentation page. It's not a whole lot of documentation you need to read through. It tells you how to write the basic API calls, and you can get all of this really cool information from it, and you didn't have to sit in front of a book for 3 hours. It's really exciting.
Well, and I mentioned Discord bots, which I don't want to minimize that. That is, I would consider that an advanced topic, chat bots. But what's going to happen is you're going to get a blob of JSON back, and that might feel like the end of the road, right? Okay, so what? So I have this little structured bit of data. What am I supposed to do with that? I think this is where we can kind of apply I call them business ready, but you don't have to think in those terms. Can I make a spreadsheet? Can I go get the wind speed on Mars daily or every hour and plot them in an Excel spreadsheet and then maybe make a bar graph out of them? Or like this mind map thing that I like, the mark map, that can I put it into Markdown and then visualize it? So like the space one is kind of neat that you could have Mars and then, temperature as a leaf in your mind map. Wind speed as another leaf in your mind map. So it's more than I think it's a great leap forward. I have a Postman request working and I have JSON, and it's the X-Men animated series JSON about apocalypse in, very cool stuff for me. I love the X-Men cartoon, and they have a wicked API, that's easy to use and well documented. And I can tell you that, Omega Red appeared in season 3. That kind of stuff. And I can make a spreadsheet of every character from the cartoon, or a mind map, or HTML pages. My nephew thought it was neat that with Python, he could type in the name of his Pokemon, his favorite Pokemon, and it would generate an HTML web page with images, because Postman will give you hyperlinks to images that you can then quickly embed in a simple HTML tag and display that image. You didn't download it. You didn't have to go find it on the internet and right click and save it and then upload it to Apache. You're just making an API call and passing that URL along. So there's a lot of different things you can do to get started. And I think people with children, there's a lot of fun things you can do with APIs and making web pages. Or a spreadsheet's probably not going to excite a 12-year-old boy or girl, but maybe if you gathered all the data into a spreadsheet and then made a pie chart out of it, they might find that a little bit more interesting, right?
Yeah, that's a
John.
big thing, because what do kids do more than practically anything? They ask questions constantly.
Oh yeah.
Yours too? Which is a great thing, but I mean, if you can take that curiosity and say, hey, let's sit in front of the screen, let's put in these questions to this application, and you can get this information from not your dad, you can get it from the internet. Look how cool you can be. I mean, I think it really, if you can go after that curiosity in kids, it's gonna spark.
That might be a new way I do that. I Google everything for my son. Like, my wife jokes that I'm an annoying question guy, right? And we probably know that if you've listened to the show for 5 minutes. Like, I never shut up with questions. So my son has inherited that from me. But I'll just Google stuff I don't know. But how cool would it be to pull up Postman, find an API, because then I could show him that too. So, John, not to appear like a really crappy podcast host, but I was going to try to impress you while we were on here and see if I could pull up the NASA API. And so it generated a question for me. So I'm on here and it says sign up for an application, an API key to access the stuff, right?
Oh.
I don't know what that is. Can you just describe to me and the audience what an API key is?
Sure. It's unfortunately, some of the NASA ones are locked behind a key. And they use those keys basically to authenticate. And it's a good question, because in the production grade world of the APIs that you're going to deal with on the job, there's a variety of ways. Some use what's called basic authentication, and that's exactly what it sounds like, a username and a password. Some of them use open authentication keys. Some of them you need to do a request to get a key from one API, and then send that key along as the authentication mechanism to subsequent APIs.
Yeah, that's what I did when I tried to use Postman.
To
you needed to get like a token, right? Which is why this API key threw me.
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the API keys are that is a little bit more complex. Andy, look for ISS Notify, I think. If you maybe Google that. I'm not sure. I don't want to crash my session again by opening another browser tab. But I think if you Google Open Notify space APIs, some combination of those words, there's some that don't require any tokens.
Okay.
They don't even need a username or password. You just go and get the data.
And I don't want to pull us down any strange rabbit holes of me failing over here at automation, but this is all very
that's
very
okay.
exciting.
So I have a follow-up idea that's I would suggest or submit to you is probably the easiest Python you're going to be able to learn or to start with. I would also suggest that if you have children that are old enough to use Postman and conceptually get this idea of REST APIs, and I've made some videos about this, or there's some open source stuff. Wikipedia has a Python library. And it's exactly what you were talking about, Andy, when you were saying, I Google things with my children to get answers. And I don't know, 7 out of 10 of those results probably lead you to a Wikipedia page of some kind, right? And you start to read the wiki.
Right.
Python has a Wikipedia library that you can import, and then I hate to say the word Pythonically, but you interact with Wikipedia through Python, and it's like, dot search or dot links or dot images based on the Wikipedia page. And it gives you back JavaScript object notation or structured data from Wikipedia. Now you can get just the summary from an article, or you could even just search like you would on Wikipedia if you search for X-Men and it gives you the pages of all the results. Well, you can search at the Python command line for X-Men, and then it will return all of the articles that X-Men is found in, that then you can follow with Python to say kind of load page, and then one of the page titles that you got back. I think it's really exciting because Wikipedia is, it's incredible. It's like, this open source of knowledge. And it's a great way for us to start with Python. I would think it's probably the easiest example I can think of. And, you're going to have to pip install a library. You're going to have to go into the Python command line and import that library, set some variables, right? Like dot into some things. It's going to cover all of the groundwork. But you can do kind of neat things like if you want to introduce a for loop or an if statement, right? If there's no hits in my search, send a message that says Wikipedia didn't find anything. Or for every result in my results, give me the page title. So that it's not just a big blob of pages. Python will sequentially give you each page title uniquely. So it's just an idea. I want to try to help people kind of get into this stuff. And, Postman and Python, particularly the Wikipedia Python, they're like, I made some, those mind maps that I was talking about. I thought, wouldn't it be neat if you could mind map the OSI stack, where you could have a leaf for each layer in the OSI model and then subsequent information. And like Wikipedia is just a wonderful place for that, right? 10 base T, it has an article. Spanning tree, it has an article. And then you start to collect those things into mind maps or CSV files or whatever, right?
You've been such a great teacher, John, this whole time for me. So I just want to I want to thank you for your selfless contributions to the community. Like, you just got a job as a developer advocate, right? But you've been a developer advocate for the couple years I've known you. So isn't that cool that just by being who you are, somebody's like, hey, we're going to pay him to do that. Like, it's just so cool to me. I'm really happy for you.
I thank you, Andy. And I've fallen into this perfect job. Like I don't know. I sort of, my wife said to me, she knows me really well. I kind of caught a bit of a tail end of the discussion. I know families come up a lot and it's really important to me. She's been a big supporter of my whole career, but she sort of said, so you have unlimited access to Cisco knowledge and learning and training and books, and you can study for any cert you want now. You get to be a developer advocate. You get to teach and train people. It's all automation based. And they're going to pay you. And they're going to pay you for this. I was like, I know, right? I would do this I would pay them to do this job, right? So it's just awesome.
Well, hang on.
I'm really, really happy about the way things have turned out.
Hang on, John. How long have you been there? They are paying you, right?
Yeah, yes, they are paying me.
Just had to make sure.
I did get a paycheck already. I am being compensated, but it's only been a month. I'm about a month in to my journey at Cisco, and I don't have anything but good things to say. And I know I'm being paid to be a developer advocate, but just a month in, and I can appreciate now why they win things like the best company in the world, and why so many people want to work with Cisco, and why the saying is you never get fired for buying Cisco, right? I've always wanted to do this. Every time I went to Cisco Live, it was like going to Disneyland for me. It really was. And now I get to participate in that and evangelize and be an advocate for them. So, Yeah, it's interesting. I did a snack minutes. I've done a few of those, and they're like, his first snack minute is an actual employee of Cisco, right? So it's quite a different thing. It's pretty neat. Yeah.
So I think this is a good segue, John. You had spent, what was it, about 8 years, I think, in your previous role as a network engineer. You started getting into abstraction, orchestration, automation, and then started using those skills at your previous employer. How did you get to the point where you knew it was time for a change? Was Cisco what you were planning for the whole time? Did it just kind of happen? Tell us the whole story.
So I saw Hank Preston. He sent a tweet out advertising this opportunity with Cisco, and I reached out to him privately just to kind of get a sense of what the role was, and I have a great deal of respect for Hank and many other developer advocates, but Hank in particular has supported my work publicly and sent me some encouraging words along the way, and really kind of looked out for me in the community. So after talking to Hank privately, I decided to pursue this opportunity. I wouldn't say that I was dissatisfied at my current, at my previous role at Parliament. I'm very proud of the work we did there and what I was able to accomplish, not just technologically, but sort of culturally as well. You alluded to bringing in automation and sort of transforming the organization. At the same time, it's big government, it's public sector, not exactly known for agility or forward thinking or adopting new ways of doing things. It was a little slow for me. I'm a go-getter, and I wanted to keep go-getting, right? And I was a little bit tired of the same old automation's next year's focus, or it was a little bit demoralizing at times not seeing us capitalize on opportunities. Let me put it that way. That was a little bit, it got a little bit tiring for me, but it was more the lifelong desire to work for Cisco and this particular opportunity. So I had pursued some other roles at Cisco, and to be totally transparent, didn't get them. Went through some interviews, met with management. Sorry, you're not the right candidate. And that happened a few times over this 8-year period. And but when I saw this particular opportunity, I was very excited, and I thought, I don't think they made this role for me or had me in mind, but it really lined up. Like, it sounds like this is for me. Like, they want me to apply teaching and automation and boot camps and evangelism and DevNet and Python and PyATS and Ansible. So I was like, it checks all the boxes. I have to really pursue this. And it went very well. I had 3 interviews over a few months. The Christmas shutdown happened, which added a bit of delay to the process. But that aside, the interviews felt like this podcast. I didn't have any nerves. I wasn't overly anxious. I gave it my best, and I was very open and honest, and sort of had this friendly giant attitude and approach. And I think they were impressed, and I was certainly impressed with them. But I don't have any regrets, I think it was the right time for me to move on. I mentioned this before we got started. I feel like I'm at a point where I can contribute more by teaching and passing on knowledge and evangelizing solutions and helping people like yourselves and others get started with automation and maybe demystify some of this programmability and automation world, as opposed to building yet another production enterprise network system. I was at a point where I wanted to put my pager down. And over the 8 years I was at Parliament, I was their go-to person. Every P1, every major outage, every 2:00 in the morning phone call came to me. And even after moving into senior roles and automating things, everything sort of kind of fell back onto me as the escalation point, which was okay. It's not that I couldn't handle it, but I'm old. I'm 44 now, and I was like, I don't want to be going into
wait a
the
minute.
data centers at 2 a.m. troubleshooting problems anymore, you know? Yeah, so I had this when the staff is working, I was planning, and when the staff wasn't working, I was working, and when the network wasn't working, I was working even harder, right? So I needed to change. I needed to change.
I love what you said, that the interview felt like this podcast, right? Because I feel like every job interview I've had that I wanted, I wouldn't say I was lying, but I was presenting my best self, and I don't want to say putting on a show, but my 3 interviews for the job I have now, John, same thing. Like, it just felt like we were just shooting the breeze, and I was really into them, and they were really into me, and I was impressed, and it felt different, right? It's neat to interview over your career and not have it be relaxing. Like, every networking job, I'm like, oh God, what are they going to ask me? The technical interview, here we go. There's just so much they could ask, right? But yeah, I mean, this job just sounds like it was written for you. Just such a great fit.
Well, I agree. I thank you, and I can echo that. The previous, when I interviewed for more of a solutions engineer or architect type role with Cisco, I'm studying all night, acronyms and products I don't know and things I haven't touched, and what are they going to throw at me? And I didn't feel comfortable. And then, like you said, you're kind of stretching. Oh, well, I'm not the expert on this, but what I understand is, and you're kind of trying to say, I don't know, without saying, I don't know. Right. And deep technical stuff. And not to say my current role isn't technical, but the interview process, I really went in there calm and confident, let's say. I think it's confidence was more than anything that I was able to project, that I was confident that I could do the role, that I would enjoy the role. And then I had the technical chops to achieve success. But I didn't have this nagging, like you said, imposter syndrome. I'm not really up for this job. And even if I get the job, that's only that. Then you have to go do the job, right? And if I can't get through the interview technically with the little bits and bytes, how successful am I going to be day 1, week 1, year 1, right? Whereas this opportunity, I felt comfortable and confident and able to contribute almost right away,
You just described my entire technical career, and I wonder why it's been so stressful. Like, oh God, I failed the technical interview, and they gave me the job again. Shit.
I'm not sure how to process this.
Not again. Not again. How am I going to do this job?
So, John, I got to ask you, I've seen people like yourself, so you and people like you that have removed themselves from enterprise roles and are at, a TME role or a developer advocate role. And all of them seem to be able to really keep their finger on the pulse of the people that handle these enterprise networks all the time. What is your advice and strategy for someone that is thinking about getting into a role like yours to be able to stay relevant with the technologies that you're supporting that customers are using in their environments daily?
So I think we have to be curious and remain curious. So Duan Lightfoot, who was on here, and I've done some work with him at when he was with Cisco. He sort of thought kind of similar, like, you're going to give that up? I would love to be deploying a new DNA and building a new fabric and kind of the flip side of why I'm saying I wanted to get out of it. So I think there is a risk that, those that can't do teach, right? And I certainly don't want to be one of those, paper tigers that can't do it, but I can deliver and teach it. So I think that we have an advantage, though, in today's day and age, that a sandbox or a virtual environment or a VM or, the APIs, it's a lot more accessible than it was even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, forget about it, right? Even just the advice of how to break into tech, that was really hard a long time ago because of this 2 to 3 years of experience that's on the footer of every job rec you've ever seen, right? And you kind of go, well, how am I supposed to get that? How do I even get 2 to 3 years of experience to get into the field, to get 2 to 3 years of experience in the field, right? This circular logic of junior requisitions. But now with sandboxes and VMs and just how much more accessible it all is, you can still maintain, maybe not the pressure of a production grade environment and the business is on the line, but you can play with an ACI simulator or an NSO instance or, technology X, Y, or Z. I think it's important to keep an eye on the industry trends. And it's also important to kind of, here's a good example. And I want to give Danny Wade a big shout out on his journey for DevNet Expert. He's been doing some incredible work. He had a throwaway comment about how easy it was to configure an ACI with Terraform. And I was like, I made note of that. I'm going to have to look into this. I'd like to try that because I think that's going to be something that people do more and more is configure declarative infrastructure through Terraform. So I think we have to pay attention to even little comments like that from the Twitter sphere or from blogs or really kind of keeping involved. The other thing I want to mention is that, and I've only been there a month, but Cisco is they're constantly communicating their plans. They're constantly having open invite sessions to see new technologies, to understand the roadmap. And in my boot camp role in particular, there's some discussion with the customer about what they want in their deep dive, right? So it's not quite a cookie cutter training provider X thing that's going to be the same every time. It's sort of tailored to what they need. And I don't want to say that I'm going to be a just-in-time expert, right? But there is going to be a lot of homework involved for me for something like NSO, for example, that we didn't have at Parliament, and that I've done a little bit of work with their APIs to make some mind maps just to play with it. But yeah, I'm definitely going to have to still do lifelong learning, as my college's slogan was, lifelong learning. I think that's very important. I don't know that we're ever going to stop having to learn, given that we're all technologists and not just network engineers. That goes for any aspect of the digital world. I think we're going to have to continue to learn and to grow. I hope that sort of answers the question. It's certainly, I don't want to say a fear of mine, but it's something I'm very conscious of, that the last 8 years or even 15 years has all been practical hands-on network engineering that I supplemented with certificates along the way. I'm not going to have that at my fingertips anymore, right?
Yeah, and I think that's where the curiosity comes in, because it's the age-old phrase, if there's a will, there's a way, right? So if you're talking to customers, you're going to be in these boot camps that you have, you're going to be talking with students, and they're going to be, like it or not, they're going to be discussing their pain points that they have, not just, learning what you're teaching them, but they're going to be talking about how they can put these things to reality in real life and what challenges they have. So I have a feeling you're going to take in some of that information that you get from those students and then be able to go lab it up on your own, figure out how to make it look like a production environment so you can help the next person. So I think the opportunities are there. It just takes somebody who is like yourself, who is curious and willing to continue learning, to be able to maintain that caliber that you had in your 15 years as a tech career. And that's also, John, that's something, those 15 years, nobody can take that experience away from you. So, I mean, that's, even that in and of itself is going to be with you for a long time.
Yeah, it's funny what you remember over the time. There's a big VTP discussion going on Twitter over the last couple of days, and I'll never forget the day the consultant plugged his switch into our network and killed it, like instantaneously. The network's just gone. And because someone said, well, if we never use VTP in production, why do we have to learn it for our CCNA? And I said, because when a consultant plugs in and kills your whole network, you'll know where to look, right? So even though you may never configure it or configure it in transparent mode and forget about it, you still have, right? And it's those kind of things that'll always stay in my mind. Are it's funny. I tend to remember the P1s and the failures a lot more than my successes, even though I've had probably 10 times the amount of success as failures. It's those failures that are they just stay with me, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. I get asked about that from time to time. It's like you're having just a friendly conversation with somebody and like, so what's your horror story? What's the top 5 bad things that you've done accidentally in your career? And you just hammer those things. You nail them out right away. And then somebody's like, so what's the biggest achievement that you've had in your career? And you got to stop and think about that for a second. It's like, hold on, that should be the other way around. But I guess that's also, you learn from your scars. You learn from the mistakes, and you never want to make those mistakes again. So it's easy to ingrain those in your brain.
Yeah, I'd love to. Maybe we could all have some way to record everybody's horror stories. We could have like a Netflix special or something about the nightmares that have happened in IT. Here's one for you, and this isn't even a technical thing, sort of is. I was sitting in front of our core, consoled in once. This wasn't at Parliament. This was a very, very long time ago, and I'll protect the company. But I'm on the core, and all of a sudden, it's just dust. There's just dust in the room, and I'm kind of going, what is going on? I look, and the company had bought a UPS that wouldn't fit through the data center doors. So the maintenance crew took a Sawzall and just cut a hole in the drywall. just like no plastic, nothing taped off. We didn't turn anything off. He just got the Sawzall out and started cutting a hole in the and I'm like watching the Sawzall draw this line down the wall behind the core, and all the dust is doing this into the fans. And like,
wait, hang on. Was his name Dan Richards?
Nothing coming out of the other side. And then, holy cow. So that was, and that's at like, 2:00 on a Wednesday afternoon. We have to shut the core down and get vacuums out. And anyway. Yeah, pre-record horror stories for Halloween. I like that, Jordan. That is a really good idea. We could have a Halloween spooky
we'll have to note that one.
Hey, John, you said you're going to be teaching boot camps, right? You're going to be an instructor?
Yes. Yeah. In the deep dive exercises. So,
and I guess it depends on the audience you're talking to, but I just want to throw my 2 cents in for a little bit of empathy as you're trying to help these poor souls. So I've been in a lot of technical boot camps, and I find that the pace, the breadth of material, and the fire hose of material, and I don't know if it's just how my brain functions, but after a couple hours of a boot camp, my brain just feels like stuff starts to bounce off of it, and I'm like, oh my God, there's 4 days left. So I like the API tonight's a perfect example. I go to the NASA API. I'm like, I'm just going to get this thing and show off for John. Well, now it's an API key. Well, what the hell is that? Like, and it's not just automation, but in tech, you try to do one thing, you find something else, and you get in all these rabbit holes. So, I guess you guys have like a syllabus and course material you have to get through, but I hope that not these poor bastards, but boot camps to me are just so challenging. At the end of it, it sounds like you guys got a really cool thing going on. It's going to be like practical application. I know if you're teaching it, they'll be fine, but I have trouble with boot camps because it's just too much information and too compressed a time. And I'm amazed that people can do that. Like, I don't know how they retain, all that fire hose of information. I mean, have you been in boot camps? Have you had that experience? Or maybe it's just my learning style. I don't know.
No, it's definitely good feedback, and definitely something that we try to be aware of and cognizant of when we're building these materials in these boot camps. And again, I've only been there a few weeks, and I've read them and looked at them and added some comments and some feedback. My CCNA was a result of a boot camp. So I did a global knowledge. I think it was like, I don't know if it was 60 hours like we had like 10 and 12-hour days on that boot camp. It was intense. And I feel for you, and I agree with you. What tends to lose me is the 2-hour solid block of theory, right? I need to be doing something, right? I need to put it into practice. And the other thing that I think what our boot camps have going for us that I've seen is this kind of scaffolding approach, right? So we're not going to throw you right into Python and some SDK or some deep Python code. We're going to start with the Postman and doing it through a GUI and through the Postman system. We're likely then going to show you Ansible first, and then we'll likely get into the Python, where it's a natural logical flow. It's not too much on a topic. It's not like we do 6 hours of Python, right? There's going to be modular approach that builds on the previous, or, maybe not builds on, because, Ansible and Python are quite different, or Postman and Ansible, or what have you, whatever mix it is. But the dots are hopefully not connected for you or not too far apart, but something that someone can follow logically, but also maybe to pick their favorite. Maybe at the end of that 4 days, they had an affinity for Ansible, right? Or the PyATS was just too much, and they prefer using Postman. I think that's an advantage of maybe this automation world, Andy, is that it is so diverse. It's not necessarily just like CCNA or learning layer 2, layer 3, and it's just, pure routing. And that's all we talk about for the whole boot camp is routing. It's kind of varied enough that we're going to do a little PyATS, we're going to do a little Postman. So hopefully that breaks it up a little bit. But it's a very valid concern about boot camps. And I don't know if coding boot camps are any better. Like I went to college for my coding experience. I didn't take a boot camp. And our boot camps are not going to garnish your salary for 4 years while you pay it back, like some of these coding boot camps that I've heard about. It's not that kind of boot camp where you sign away a third of your salary to get your diploma or whatever. It's not like that.
Yeah.
And no offense to anybody that runs those boot camps for profit.
I love that you said automation is diverse. That's a good reframe for me, because I'm frequently intimidated by how much is going on in automation, right? Like I can't seem to keep a single thread long enough to like get something into my brain long term. But I think diversity is a better way for me to think of it. There's just so much there. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. I just have to find something that's interesting to me. Like I think that space API running a Git and Postman will be something that I can get excited about, and not really be overwhelmed by the rest of the diversity, right? Like, but what about Python? And what about Ansible? Right. And what about YAML files? And what about data structures? And am I doing spaces or tabs? And does it matter? And should I make my tabs into spaces? Because that's what people do. And what IDE should I use? I mean, that's what happens in my head. I'm like, oh God.
Well, I think that's an excellent point, Andy. It's kind of that catching fire mentality. You use the spark of the Postman in some web-based NASA, Harry Potter, or whatever API to just kind of see that instant kind of gratification of, okay, I can push this API call, get back data, and then, I can look to the button. John, you're going to have to remind me what it's called, but within Postman to reveal the code of what it looks like in Python. Oh, now I can see what that looks like in Python. That's another starts another small fire that, I can go over here and look at this. And now can I not just do the easy button, but then I can take that Python code and, maybe I can edit it a little bit and make it do something else. So I think it does really start with, step away from the straight traditional, I need to read a book, I need to know what every little bit of the basics is before I get started. Find that one little thing that interests you, and I think it's just going to start those sparks and just point you in a bunch of different directions where you're going to keep learning more.
Yeah, for me, the context in which you're learning that thing, right? Like me learning Python to automate networks doesn't excite me. I see the value. I get it. I got to do it. But right, like given a different context or applying it to something I'm actually more passionate about than routers and switches, right? I mean, it's a job. Don't get me wrong. I appreciate my career, but I'm more excited about, the temperature and or the wind direction at the Mars rover right now. Like that to me is like, holy crap. Not, I just pushed the config to 32 switches. Like, okay, I mean, that's useful. That's good. That's what I'm paid to do. But yeah, I'm going to try to switch that context and maybe apply it to something that maybe is a hobby, right? Or more of a passion than my career.
Well, I'm excited to hear that, Andy, and I hope people listening who maybe have shied away or haven't found that hook into them, maybe this will be their hook. And what's neat is that, I don't know, once you start to apply it or do it in, production or whatever, I don't know, let's just take the status codes. They might not mean anything to you right now, right? Like I kind of equate some of these things to the dashboard in an airplane. Have you ever gone into a cockpit and wondered how these pilots do it? Like, what does that knob do? What does that light mean? If this thing's flashing, is that bad or good? I don't know. I don't think I could ever take all that in, right?
Yeah.
Now you look at Postman and I get a status back, 200. That's good. That's a good thing, right? But if I get a 404 versus a 403, I'm sort of at a point where just through habitual use, it's not because I'm smarter than anyone. It clicked over time that, 404, it's not found. It means my request is pointing at an API that doesn't exist. Just like if I get a 404 when I go to a browser page and it says this page isn't found. So little things will accumulate through your hobby, right? And I don't know, I think that you can parlay hobbies into your real world in this digital sphere. How many graphic designers or web designers started out with a MySpace page? There's certain things you can do for enjoyment that then kind of transition into a career or in your day-to-day life and technology. I think there's a lot to be said for having fun. And if you're not having fun, one, you're not going to get paid for it. Like in your own time at home when I'm after hours and I'm not getting paid. The last thing I want to do is work really hard for no money, sometimes very little payoff, on something that I'm not enjoying, right? That's your free time. And I've put books down. If I don't enjoy a book, I don't force my way through it. If I don't enjoy a film I'm watching or a TV show, I shut it off. And it's so easy to do that at home with Postman or Python or Ansible, or I'm not getting it, I'm turning it off. Or I'm not enjoying this experience, forget about it, right? Whereas, holy cow, I just made a spreadsheet of every Ninja Turtle and what episodes they appeared in, right? Like, that's fun. That is kind of neat, right?
Yeah, maybe it's about fun, right? I mean, this podcast we're on now started out as a hobby, and we weren't sure if anybody was going to listen, but this is the most fun I've had in most of my career, so far. And I haven't made $1 from it yet, but because I'm having fun, it's all good, right? Like it's a hobby, it's fun. I've met so many people. I mean, I never would have met you. So yeah, maybe you got to have fun. Apply learning to something that's either a hobby or that you find fun. Because then it takes the drudgery out of it. I just feel like I'm back in high school sometimes learning stuff. I'm like, but maybe I'm doing it in the wrong context. So yeah, this is helping me, John. I'm going to be bothering you when I get my API key figured out and then I hit my next problem. I mean, I'll Google it. I won't bother you for everything, but
no, but it's funny. I don't think you wouldn't be bothering me. I'd be like, all right, he wants to learn. He wants to ask questions and figure it out. That's definitely not bothering me. I don't actually get a lot of direct questions or a lot of direct asks for help as much as I did when the book was hot. So I certainly have cycles to help. Mm-hmm. And this goes to anybody listening or anyone in the community. I'm always in the Discord channel. I've toned down reaching out to others saying, hey, do you want to learn some Python? Are you free? I came on a little strong there for a bit, directly messaging everybody in the Discord. Hey, what are you doing today? Hey, I just got a coffee. What do you feel like? You feel like writing some Python? I'm going to write some Python. Who wants to write Python? Everyone's like backing away, like, just leave them alone, right? So I'll try to, I'll wait for people to come to me, I guess.
I'm gonna start introducing you as, hey, have you met our friend and savior John Capobianco? So John,
one day I came back to my Discord and I had 18 messages, and every one of them was like, I'm spending time with my kids today. It's 2:00 in the morning here. Like, do you do anything else other than write? Like, I had like 18 messages, and they were all like various ways of telling me to fuck off and leave me alone, politely, right? But so,
well, when you were going crazy with your mind maps, after like 3 weeks of it, John, I'm like, Jesus Christ, what the hell is he mind mapping now? This man he's a madman with mind maps. I love your passion,
the mind
man.
maps.
Really
you
good.
Nailed it. Yeah. Hey, are you an Anne of Green? Or do you like Anne of Green Gables? I hear there's an Anne of Green Gables API. Do you feel like investigating that today? Anyway, yeah, it got a little carried away.
Oh, that's great. So, John, as we start to kind of round this out, I do want to give you a chance to talk a little bit more. I don't know how far along these boot camps are into the planning stage, but where can people learn more about these if they can yet?
Oh, sure. Yeah. If you just Google Cisco training boot camps, or if you look at my pinned tweet, I've just made it my pinned tweet so people can find the organization I've joined and what I'm doing now with my career. And if anyone's going to Cisco Live, the 3 developer advocates and our manager, we're all going to be presenting condensed labs at Live. So I'll actually get to present and speak at Live at 2 different sessions this year, which I'm just excited doesn't cover it. I'm really excited about that. But the documentation's pretty easy to find. And there's actually, if you find the Cisco Training Bootcamp landing page, if you scroll down a little bit, there's a really nice video that Yulia Santala, one of my colleagues, one of the other developer advocates, and Cisco TV and my manager, Joe Reinhardt, they shot a video discussing them. I think that's probably the best source of truth about the boot camps is the little video series and the infographics that are on that page.
That's excellent. Thanks for that information, John. Is there anything we didn't touch on that you wanted to cover tonight?
No, I'm so happy to be back, and I really liked the way the conversation went tonight. I like that I'm not just telling my story, but getting some ideas out there to get people started and get enthusiastic. And I think maybe we're onto something here, Tim and Andy, that there can be a fun way to approach this. And maybe it's the approach that just needs to change. And if anyone's finding, like you said, drudgery is a great word, or it's mundane, or it feels like school again, honestly, like if you're into music, movies, cartoons, comic books, space, dinosaurs, Pokemon, Ninja Turtles, like there is an API for almost anything out there. So get Postman and get started. And maybe take my advice on the Wikipedia Python library. And if anyone has children, I also have made videos and have repos on GitHub that are focused for parents trying to help their kids get involved in programming. That's all I wanted to mention. And as always, if you join the Art of Engineering Discord, you can send me a direct message and I'll get you a PDF of my book. I'm happy to do that. Or on Twitter, or however you want to reach me. I'd prefer you join the Discord and join the community. And as a reward, I'll give you the PDF of the book. And I'm always here to help you guys or anybody listening. I really enjoy, I just love being a part of this movement that's going on the internet.
Definitely. Thank you, John. This is always a pleasure. Andy, what are your final thoughts?
I know I've said it before, John, but I'm just so happy for you. This job couldn't have been, it couldn't have gone to a better, more deserving and nicer guy. If the biggest thing I got out of this conversation, I think, is what you just said. It's almost like a revelation to me. Like, I've been learning automation in a very static, drudgery-filled networking context, where I think changing the context of the material is really going to help hook me. Because, for a while, every conversation we had about automation, like, oh, find your use case and you'll get meat in the game. And like, that did happen to me at work, and I had to update a bunch of like SNMP community strings, but it still just felt like drudgery. But I'm going to try switching the context. I'm going to try applying some automation to a passion of mine, a hobby, something I'm more interested in. And that might keep me going, so that when I hit that wall, I don't just go, God damn it, I suck at automation, and give up again. Right. I'll be like, shit, I got to get that temperature on Mars, John. Like, I got to keep going, like really, I need that, I need that passion. So yeah, man, thank you so much for coming on. You're such a, I hope we can remain friends. I think we might be sworn enemies per our employers, but I'm really hoping that, we can stay friends, and that they don't make us, say mean things about each other.
No, I think we're going to be okay. And the only other thing I would add, Andy, that maybe we didn't talk about, is that confidence and self-confidence is going to go up, because you're making successful space calls and you're doing things successfully at home. I think as your confidence goes up, that has a lot to do with how much you're enjoying, or how much you can absorb or want to continue to learn. If you're not enjoying it and you're confident, I really want you to succeed, Andy, because I can see sometimes that you're hard on yourself, and it's almost like your confidence is too low. And I get that, because it's hard to start something that you're not really passionate about. So, get going on the space APIs, and confidence will follow, and then success will follow the confidence. But there's no question we're going to remain friends. And I looked, it's a 14-hour drive. I can't come to the on-site meeting, unfortunately. I looked into it, but maybe someday we'll actually all get to meet too,
I hope so, man. I hope so. Thanks so much, John.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'll add is,
hey, take care. It's great to see everybody.
While that we know that anything worth doing is worth putting time into, and potentially some stress, I think when it comes to this type of topic, any way we can lower that barrier to entry, I think is helpful. And if it is just finding something that, reframing it, like you said, Andy, and finding something that interests you to get you that initial spark to push you into other use cases, I think is really great advice. I've heard it before, but I've never really kind of put two and two together until this conversation, John, where it's just like, sometimes you just need to step back, and rather than finding that use case that is work, it could be drudgery, finding something that's just fun can spark into finding something that can help you at work. So yeah, that's the biggest thing I'm going to take away from this. So thank you, John, very much. Andy, thanks for the chat tonight. Everybody listening, thank you. Patreons, we always appreciate your support. If you want to become a Patreon, you can check out patreon.com/artofneteng. This was a fun conversation. For the love of anything, let John Capobianco show you some damn mind maps. And we'll see you next time.
Hey y'all, this is Lexi. If you vibe with what you heard us talking about today, we'd love for you to subscribe to our podcast in your favorite podcatcher. Also, go ahead and hit that bell icon to make sure you're notified of all our future episodes right when they come out. If you want to hear what we're talking about when we're not on the podcast, you can totally follow us on Twitter and Instagram at @artofneteng. That's art of NETENG. You can also find a bunch more info about us and the podcast at artofnetworkengineering.com. Thanks for listening.